Hey guys, welcome. I know you just finished your wins. Congratulations on that. It's awesome every week to celebrate the thing that you say, man, I did something better this week than I've ever done before or that I would have done in the past. Maybe you responded to a trigger in a different way, a more positive way. You interacted with somebody that you've had maybe a strained relationship with in a better way. Maybe you just did better plans and followed through with them and stayed more committed than you have in the past. If you have anything that you've won and done better than you've done before, it's important to celebrate it and create a habit in your heart of celebrating. And that will actually help you get momentum to create more wins in the future. So you might have failed 600 times, but if you have a victory, you had a win, it's important to celebrate it and train your brain to celebrate and to have victory. And that will go a long ways in your life in helping you change. The Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And part of renewing your mind is teaching it to look for the wins instead of looking for the losses. Today we're going to jump into a discussion called You Can't Lose What You Never Had. And that sounds obvious, right? I can't lose that wallet because I never had that wallet. I lost my hair, but I used to have it. That's how I could lose it. You can't just lose it if you never had it. If I was born bald and lived my whole life bald, I could never say I lost my hair. I never had it. So in order to lose something, you have to, first of all, you have to have had it. And so I think that this is important. We're going to read something out of Romans here, and let me grab my phone and we're going to pull it up. I want you to pull up on your phone Romans chapter 1, verses 18 to 23. Or if you have a paper Bible, you can also do that. But we're going to dive into this topic a little bit, and I think you're going to be surprised at just the simplicity of it, and hopefully it brings you some freedom. And this is Romans, again, chapter 1, verses 18 to 23. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. So people who don't have God's goodness and righteousness are suppressing God's truth. Why? Because obviously it disturbs them, because he disagrees with some of their actions and activities, so they suppress the truth because they don't want to be accountable to it. It says, but because what we may know about God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were they thankful, but they became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of incorruptible God into the image made like corruptible man, and the birds and the four-footed animals and the creeping things. God has shown his power and his ability over all of creation from the very beginning. We can look at it and see all the things he's made, all the things he's done, and it points to someone who has all authority and all power, because he made the trees, he made the birds, he made the oceans, he made the sun. And the more scientists look at it, the more they realize that these things couldn't have had by accident. They couldn't have happened by accident. These things happened because they were designed. DNA itself has so much information in it that, believe it or not, you can look this up online, that it was Stanford or Harvard, I believe, but they took like 2 billion books and they put them on a strand of DNA. I know that sounds insane, like science fiction, but it's true. They put all these books on DNA, and then they transferred the DNA to a different science lab in a whole different state, and they accessed the DNA markers, and they were able to unload all of the books that they had programmed into the other DNA, brought it over, and pulled it out at a whole other place with the different scientists. How that works, I can't really tell you. I'm not that smart with science. But somehow there's so many genetic markers in DNA, and they can be coded, that they were able to literally translate all of these books onto DNA sequences, take them over, and then retranslate them back to English and put them all out as books again, as digital books. That's how well designed DNA is. It's literally a language structure built within our bodies, built within our cells. So who did that? Somebody with great control, somebody with great design made all that. And so that's what it's talking about. It's talking about God is in control. So if you look at your sheet, here's the truth about control. And you'll see the letters here, YCLWYNH. And each of those stands for a word. And you know what? Y is for you, C is for can't, L is for lose, W is for what? Y is for you, N is never, and H is had. You can't lose what you never had. And here's what you never had. You never had total control. Why does that matter? It matters because one of the biggest triggers for addiction, depression, anxiety, anger, like all these things that we go into, is this feeling that we've lost control and we try to grab control. I feel I've lost some control of my emotions. I'm feeling discouraged. So what am I going to do? I'm going to drink. I'm going to get high. I'm going to get into sexual addiction. Why? Because I'm trying to control my emotions and bring them back to the place I want them to be. I can't control that person, so anger is going to come out of me now because I'm going to try to do what? Control them. You know, I don't like what's happening at my job or with my finances or in the economy or with politics. So now anger is coming out, and I'm going to either respond angrily to somebody to try to control that situation or respond through some type of addictive behavior in order to control my own emotions. But all of those things fall in the same box. They're control issues. And so we're always trying not to lose control. I want control. I don't want to lose it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to stay in control. But here's the truth. You can't lose what you never had. You never had control anyway. And that's why life has been so up and down and so stressful, because you're trying to hold on to something that was never yours. And if you can learn to accept the reality and the truth that I don't have control. I never had control. I was never the one in charge. Sure, I can take control over certain actions that I have or certain decisions that I make, but that's really it. I can't even control my spouse. I can't control my kids. I can't control my neighbor. I can't control a lot of things going on around me, the weather, my job, the economy, politics. Like, I can't control any of these things. If I have a pet, I can't even control my pet. I don't want him to go to the bathroom all over my yard, but guess what? I'm out there with the little baggies picking it up. Why? Because I can't control him. He's going to go where he's going to go. And so you oftentimes might find yourself going around trying to pick up everybody else's mess and being frustrated that they messed over here, they messed over there, and you're going around. But you know what? You can't control it. Life is what life is, and people make the decisions that they make. And if you can't be okay with those things, you're going to always live stressed out because you'll never be able to get it all under control. All right, so let's move on and look at this verse in Luke chapter 23, verses 13 to 25. And this is an important verse because it shows our heart. It says, then Pilate, Jesus is on trial. They're looking at taking Jesus to the cross. That's the background here. And Pilate is the judge. It says, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, he said to them, you've brought this man, talking about Jesus, to me, as one who misleads the people. And indeed, having examined him in your presence, I found no fault in this man concerning those things which you accuse him. No, neither did Herod, for I sent you back to him, and indeed nothing deserving of death has been done by him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. So he's saying, look, there's nothing wrong. Jesus has not committed any crimes. I'm going to let him loose. But here's what the people did. They all cried out at once, saying, away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, who was a criminal. Release to us Barabbas, a man who had been thrown into prison for a certain rebellion made in the city and for murder. Pilate, therefore, wishing to release Jesus, again called out to them, but they shouted, saying, crucify him, crucify him. Then he said to them the third time, why? What evil has he done? I found no reason for death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. But they were insistent, demanding with loud voices that he be crucified. And the voices of these men and of the chief priests prevailed. So here people have an opportunity to have Jesus released, who had done nothing wrong, in order to have Barabbas released instead. That's what they said. You know what? We don't want Jesus released. We want to have Barabbas released. We want to have a criminal released. Why? Well, because a criminal was fighting for their rulership. He was trying to overthrow the government in order for them to have rulership and to have reign. Jesus was here to bring the rulership and the reign of God onto the earth. And just like in today's times, many people would rather be ruled by themselves or by other people than they would by God. And so we go through the same thing. We never had control. People never had control, but we don't want God's control in our life. Why? Because his standards are different. His ways are different. He says to forgive, but we want to hold bitterness. He says to love, but we want to be angry. He says to give, but we want to have stuff and hold it for ourselves. He says to honor others above ourselves, but we want to receive the most honor. And so when we try to hold on to control, we try to do things our way, We're doing the same thing that they did when they said release Barabbas rather than Jesus. We are choosing human decisions, human power over the will of God. And so I would challenge you, as you journal for a minute, is there anywhere in your life that you are currently fighting to hold control and choose human control, like they chose Barabbas, human authority, human will, human victory, human freedom? I want my way. I want to rule like they did with Barabbas over the simplicity of allowing Jesus to have his say and Jesus to have his way in your life and make the decisions that you know that God would like you to make. Take a minute to journal on that. When you're done with that, we'll break out into groups and have some discussion on that. Remember, you'll get out of this whatever you put into it. If you engage, you'll get more benefits. So I encourage you to engage it with your whole heart, with your whole mind. Hey, you guys have a good night. God bless.